I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think. I think it's going to be a really fun game. Well, don't get me wrong. I think it's going to be, I think it's a very cool game. I'm just, yeah, so I don't know if I'll stream more Deadlock at some point. Maybe, but it's so long. I think I'll probably rather just play gacha games or Stormgate. Fast forward 2 weeks, and here I am grinding away on Deadlock, inviting friends to the test build, and publishing my own guides and researching more. So what changed? Before we talk about what I think Deadlock does right, let me share where I was at with the game when it was announced publicly. And just so I don't have to repeat myself throughout the whole video, as a background on my gaming experiences, I was deep into a bunch of different MOBAs before Valorant, and generally have enjoyed a whole slew of games, so I'm not exactly coming from a narrow point of view. Okay, let's dive right in. I had been invited into the confidential test build over the summer, right in the middle of VCT season. It was cool, but honestly, I was tired every time I booted it up, and it was quite overwhelming. I'm out here trying to study VODs and past matches of VCT, and then now I have to learn a whole new game that is nowhere near the shallow end. Then there was the shop and the entire array of items, and of course at the time there were only Western servers, so the lag didn't exactly make lasting enjoyable. I mean, there were a whole bunch of obstacles. But the game did have some clear layers of complexity and revolved around everything being OP and then having counters. As someone who loved learning Dota 2 and watching it, this was great news. Except the games were long and laning phases were stressful, and it was simply just too much for me to learn. So I left it on the back burner, thinking I'd probably check it out when it goes public again. Here we are. It went public, and I picked up right where I left off. I love the concept. I think it's a very well-designed game, but perhaps I'm just burnt out on new MOBAs, or maybe it's just new competitive PvP games, and maybe it's just the long online sessions that are out of my control. AKA, maybe I'm just getting old. And my first few forays ever since the public announcement changed very little. While the goods seem to have gotten even better during my time away, the annoyances still seemed the same. But I saw that they added some new heroes, and Viscous was one heck of a charmer. And to be honest, I miss playing games that really allowed for creative skill expression, even if sometimes it's a bit of a meme. Rest in peace, AP Master E, and, maybe even Warmog's Sivir. So I figured I'd at least try it. And that's how it all starts for anyone, isn't it? I'll give it a fair shot, they say, and now you're hooked. So what does Deadlock do so well already? First off, I think it rewards critical thinking. A la Dota 2, there truly is a counter to everything. It just may not be meta or obvious or within your build at all. But this game really rewards counterplay when you're behind rather than just, catching up after farming for X minutes. And I love that. It makes it feel much more mentally active even when you're losing. Second, there's a lot of tactile feedback. It's a test build, so it is still quite messy and a lot of things are still placeholders, but for the most part, it's already quite good. The last hit and deny sounds on souls are clear, crisp, and almost addicting. Quite a few impact skills already have very satisfying sounds and or animations to them. And it just feels nice when you're, doing cool things. This is a pretty stark difference coming over from another recently released early access, game that's still in development, where there really wasn't much tactile feedback. And while I have hope and faith that that's going to change for Stormgate, it's clearly making a very big difference even in the early first impressions. Third, Deadlock is overwhelming, but with a purpose. Now, I say with a purpose because there are some games where it's like, well, it's complex for the sake of being complex. But I would say in Deadlock, they're all there kind of for a very specific purpose to guide gameplay a certain way. Now, even with that purpose, the overwhelming aspect is a hit or miss for some people. They try to mitigate it somewhat with the in-game guide system that they ported over from Dota 2. And I do think that's great. It's a good start. But let's say you just don't want to learn complex games, then obviously that's not going to change. But at the end of the day, if you like theory crafting, testing ideas, and things like that, the game has that in spades. Lots of abilities have multi-uses, there's tons of active items, there's interesting combos of passive items, I mean, you name it. Next, everyone can carry. Now, carries in quotations, because obviously some are better at carrying than others. But even then, like, let's say there's a hard carry running rampant on the other side. Even without team play, there are some one-click counters that you can find in the shop. Cough, cough, knockdown, and curse is a godsend. Please buy it if there is someone on the other team just absolutely running amok. But there are ways to mitigate that even on your own. And then I would say, even if you're not playing a hard carry, you can always build towards damage, at least just within matchmaking, especially in the early days of the game so far, where you can feel just as powerful and have some fun. Another point is that as complex as the game can seem, there are also some very nice quality of life changes to the traditional MOBA system that alleviate the stress and annoyances that really plague a lot of these, such as, you know, the laning phase and how last hitting works, and some lanes having to lane with a teammate, other lanes going solo, things like that. In Deadlock, there's only one currency. So there's souls, and that's both the money you use in the shop, but it's also kind of your experience, right? That's how they measure, you know, do you get another ability point or not? And souls are shared at 100% value for both lane partners if you're in a dual lane during the laning phase. Now, after a certain amount of time, it's distributed evenly amongst any teammates, but that's also still the same, right? As long as you're in the vicinity and pushing the lane together, it doesn't matter who's getting the last hits, it's going to be split amongst you. So yes, yeah, there can still be some way of, all right, we want this person to solo push this lane because we want them to get full value on the souls, you know, in the mid game, things like that. Yeah, there's going to be layers to that, but also you're not going to have the bickering or the stress of, do I last hit, do they last hit, you know, who's really getting the money during the laning phase, things like that. It gets rid of that. So it's a nice mix between something like Heroes of the Storm, where there was just like no last hitting value, and then, you know, Dota 2, where it's like really hardcore last hitting and denying value. Then there's things like the losing team just overall gets increased rewards for most actions. So, you know, it's kind of an automatic catch-up mechanic, things like that. There's no wards, so you don't have to worry about who's buying wards or where you're placing them. There's no teleporting back to base or potions to really drag out the laning phase and things like that. Yes, there are zip lines and there's a lot of mobility for ganking, but these are all very intentional to really help you focus onto the main part of the game, which is a lot of kind of the skirmishing and buying items and going for these crazy fights to help push the map. And on that note, let's go to the next aspect, which is that it's a very, very active game. I recently went back and played some League of Legends as I had to cast a local event. While it was refreshing to return after so much time, playing solo queue, all I could think about during the laning phase was that I could be catching up on so much in my gacha games during that time that it's not even funny. Deadlock does away with that by being a third-person shooter, so harass, last hitting, and denying are all much more active, quick, and simultaneously done sometimes. Again, there's also a lot more mobility. There's things like the zip lines, you know, there's rolling and dash jumping and sliding. And so ganks are much more active. They're much quicker. It doesn't take a long time to just walk slowly through the jungle to help another lane, by which point the fight is done. And now you're walking back for another 10 seconds or something, not doing anything. You get rid of a lot of that, and you're kind of always in the action as long as you're choosing to do so. There's also no mana, so you're rewarded for being very proactive. And last but not least, the lane shop truly gets rid of so much downtime. And last but definitely not least, and maybe somewhat obvious, the team play is just so satisfying. Landing combos with friends and teammates is sick. Now, this is true in almost any MOBA that survived for, you know, more than like 3 months or whatever, so I'm not going to say that this is a special aspect, but it's a very important aspect of MOBAs. I did also find quite a few other people in Korea to play somewhat regularly with, which does help a ton. So I'm going to say that that definitely gave it a bit more of a positive impact in my return to Deadlock testing. But thanks to all of these above factors, I have been enjoying researching and learning the game even on my own. The games can still get pretty long though, and let's be honest, it's a pretty draining game. It's so well designed that it could make you forget the fatigue while playing, but it's an exhausting one for sure. But for now, it's convinced me enough to stick with it and just have fun with the absolute playground it offers, at the very least in the early days. And I hope to help newer players see past the initial frustration and complexity and, you know, give it a fair shot, so to speak. So I'll be playing it for a while, and, you know, I'll probably be making some videos every now and then as well. It is the off-season after all for Valorant, so it actually works out. If you're interested in Deadlock, hope you enjoy. If not, well, maybe I can get you interested into Deadlock. Also, if you are, playing or watching Deadlock and you have any questions or topics you'd like covered about Deadlock, let me know in the comments below. It doesn't matter if it's a very, very silly basic question. I actually want to help a lot of newer players kind of get into the game and learn the basics a bit quicker, kind of explain things at eye level, because obviously there's tons of hardcore nerds out there that are going to break down all the deepest aspects of the game. I'm going to be looking to create some newbie-friendly content and, some of my own hero guides as well, although I'm not going to guarantee any great win rates on those. It's just going to be my own ideas and some fun I've had. That's going to be it for this one. Just wanted to give an update on why my tune has changed a little bit revolving around Deadlock. If you're already in the game, I would love to hear your thoughts as well, your impressions on the game down in the comments below. And for now, that's it. I'll see you guys next time. I'm actually working on Mo and Krill build, so that'll probably be the next video. See you guys then.